What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Coin Vigilante podcast. Today, you know who you're seeing here today, but today we have a very special guest, one that I've been trying and wanting to interview so much to talk about Litecoin and his brand new company that he just made, Hedge. So, David Schwartz, director of Litecoin Foundation and CEO of Hedge, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Carlos. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I've been pushing you off for a little bit, but it's for a reason. So it wasn't personal at all.
It's worth it, man. Hey, patience, works out at the end. So, a lot of people know you. I don't even know if we need a big intro. But for those who don't know you, you're a director at Litecoin Foundation. You're an avid advocate. You do all this research, especially for metrics for, Litecoin and all that stuff. Talk to us about how you got into Litecoin really quick, and how you got to where you got. Why Litecoin? Why are you in the crypto space? And then we'll talk about a bunch of other things.
Yeah. So, I purchased my first Bitcoin in August of 2017, and I had sort of started following it a little bit the year prior when I heard John McAfee was going to be running a company that was going to do Bitcoin mining. That's the reason why I got on Twitter. I never had done Twitter before either and stuff. So it was all that was pretty new to me. I had heard about it when I was in the military years prior, but mostly because I had heard that it was a very negative edge to it. And it was all about, illegal doings and all that kind of stuff. I was kind of scared off by that. I had a top secret compartmental clearance. And so the last thing you want to do is ever do anything that puts that in question. So I was just kind of like, well, this is an interesting concept, but it sounds like it's a little too fishy for me. So I steered clear of it. And then once I retired and I realized that it had only grown and that there were legitimate people in the space, then I started looking at it a little differently. So, so I purchased my first, amount of Bitcoin back in, I think it was July or August. I think it was August of 2017. And then I found out about Litecoin very, very close after that, and really enjoyed the concept behind both of them because they were very similar, but seemed to sort of cater to people a little bit differently. And it was really interesting how Litecoin sort of took like this little brother role and was basically like, you ever see the commercial for Life cereal where little Mikey is like the little brother and the other kids are at the table and they don't know whether they want to try the cereal. And so they're like, yeah, we'll have Mikey try it. He'll do anything. So Litecoin kind of seemed like little Mikey to me, where like it became this test net, yet it was still its own person at the same time. Right. And I found that to be really interesting. And of course, Charlie being the kind of humble sort of like, I don't even want to be in the spotlight kind of guy, actually drew me closer than the ones that were like yelling from the rooftop and all this flash and all these different things. And I'm kind of a conservative guy by nature anyway. So for me, those types of things kind of rung true to me. And then the fact that, over time you realize, okay, this thing's never gone down. You can actually send it to people for whatever. And then the first time you do that, you're just like, biting your nails and you're like, oh my God, is this thing going to even work or not? I remember first time I sent Bitcoin, I was just freaking out, and it took a little while, but it got there. And then I got into Litecoin, and then I sent some Litecoin to somebody in Australia that needed some money. And it was like, I was like, okay, I sent it. And they're like, I already got it. I was like, I just wrote to you that I sent it. You already got it. It was amazing. Right. So I was like, this is pretty freaking cool, because I knew how like remittances going to other countries and stuff worked. And it blew my mind after that. So I started researching into it more and more and decided to try and be a positive influence in the space, and joined as a volunteer for the foundation back in February of 2018. And here I am.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, we all have a story of how we got into crypto, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and that's a pretty good story because, to me, the very first time I got into Litecoin was, 2017. That's the first crypto I bought. Yeah. And what drove me into it is I knew there was a problem in the system. I knew there was a problem with the money printing, and I couldn't figure out what is out there that could solve this problem. And so anyway, I ran into Litecoin, Bitcoin, and I realized, holy crap, I can actually send value to someone else in this world instantly without no one knowing, censorship resistant. It literally brings power back to the individual. So that's kind of what drove me into it. I bought some ever since. I've been passionate about it. And so, it's just interesting because it started with just retailers getting involved into cryptocurrency back in 2017. And over the course of those 4 years, going into 2021, we have PayPal, who everyone has, millions and millions of people who can now transact Litecoin, Bitcoin, right, amongst one another. Recently, the news came out that 36 million merchants can now accept Bitcoin and Litecoin within each other, right, through the PayPal network. So it's huge. And we've seen, even countries now like El Salvador adopting Bitcoin. So there's been a lot of development and a lot more people who are realizing the importance of cryptocurrency, and particularly cryptocurrencies that are scarce in this current monetary system like Litecoin and Bitcoin. And, something cool with that is that not only can people buy it now, but people can also accept it and turn their paycheck automatically into crypto. And the infrastructure is growing, and you can do that because you created Hedge. So talk a little bit about Hedge. So what is Hedge? I know a little bit about it. Obviously, I'm wearing a shirt here. So I know about that, but I know that you can automatically convert your paycheck directly, seamlessly to your wallets into crypto. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's funny. You're the one wearing the shirt, not me, right?
I know. Gotta represent.
Yeah, no. So Hedge was born, I feel, out of necessity, and it's interesting because being in the foundation and working through a lot of the different things that either get proposed to us or ideas that we have, or just listening to a lot of feedback in the public, finding ways to get people to have Bitcoin and Litecoin in their hands without having to go through like this really, rigorous process of, registering onto an exchange, and then, your bank may or may not even allow you to send money I had mine stop me the first few times I tried doing it. I had to explain to them that this was me choosing to do this. And they're like, well, this could be illegal activity. And I'm like, it's not, it's me. And I'm choosing to do this, and it's my money. So let me do it. Right. So a little easier back in 2017. I mean, over the course of the last few years, they've just blocked off cards in general. Some banks won't allow you to do anything with it. My son's had his bank tell him a couple of times no, all this different stuff. And so we wanted to figure out a way to get people to do it without having to go through all these different processes. So started, it was at the time, well, it's still called Cornerstone Global Management, but it was an LLC at the time that I created here in Wisconsin. And since then, we've migrated it over to C Corp out of Delaware, but the office is in Tennessee, where my partner lives, Paul. And so basically what we did was we took his expertise in the payments and banking industry of over 20 years and my connections and experience in crypto over the last 4.5 years. And we created this process to where people basically, they sign up on a site. Once they go through an ID verification process, otherwise known as KYC, or Know Your Customer, which is the necessary evil if you want to try and do things in a legal manner here in the United States for the most part. You just go through this thing where you show an ID and it matches whatever you're saying is you. Once that's verified, a bank account is created for the person that you can then take that routing and account number to whoever you want to have pay you for whatever it is that you want to have done, whether you're a contractor, a real estate agent, a regular employee, doesn't matter, right? All this is a direct deposit thing. So you're basically getting the information for a direct deposit. People send you money into this account and it gets converted into whatever it is that you told us you want to convert it into. And then it either sits there in the custody of Hedge, or you can have it automatically sent out to the wallets that you already own. So, and that's it. I mean, it's literally that simple. And it sounds like it's that simple, which it is for the user, but for us in the background, man, that was not an easy process to get all of that lined up. And it took a very long time, right, to do that. And so during that process, we also rebranded it from something that was called CP3 to Hedge. And Hedge was just this fluky, lovely thing that happened where we were like, okay, CP3 just does not resonate with anybody. It doesn't roll off your tongue. It's just really not much of a marketing kind of a name that you would want to use for something. So everybody identifies with hedging against the inflation of the dollar, hedging your bets against the financial system in general. And so Hedge just seemed like a really good name. And then one day, Paul was talking to his girlfriend about it, and she's like, "Oh, so you're gonna use like a hedgehog for the mascot or something?" And he was like, "You know what? It's kind of a good idea, right?" Because we didn't have anything at the time. So he came back to the group, and we were like, "That sounds awesome." Yeah. So then the next thing we did was Craig and we came up with a design for the hedgehog. His name is Hal, right? So I thought, you know what better way to sort of like embody the entire movement. There's no better way to do that than to call the hedgehog Hal after Hal Finney. And so if anybody's not familiar with Hal Finney, he was one of the original Bitcoin developers, received the first Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi Nakamoto himself, and just played a really key role in everything that we do today. And so it just seemed like a perfect fit. And, Hal ends up kind of like drawing many different people in. Females absolutely just adore Hal. He's the cutest thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's also sort of dressed up to be, he shows the cypherpunk movement in his punky haircut, but then he also has like a cyberpunk feel to him, which draws to the newer demographic as well. And so everybody's able to relate to Hal in some kind of a way. And so for me, that just seemed like a really good changeover from the dry sort of blah tasting CP3 thing we had going on. But the premise behind the program itself is exactly the same. So we're just really excited. It's live now. It took us a long time to do that because there's just so many fintech layers on the institutional, like on the back end side that has to happen in order to be compliant. I never knew about it. I'd never been a part. It was just an idea in my head, right?
Yeah.
And you have people feed you ideas, and so then you're like, "This is a great idea," and you never really know. No. You never really know the extent to which you have to go to make something like that real
until you try it.
I mean, take your watch, your watches that you're doing. It's an idea you have, and you're like, "I want to do this," and then over time, you realize all these different layers that are on top of that you probably never foresaw before, even if you've gone through something like this before, right?
Yep.
And it just sort of adds into the timeline and adds into the difficulty, but it doesn't take away from the idea or the drive inside of you. And that's that beautiful, that beautiful war that goes on between what could be and what ends up being. What ends up being could either be something that falls off and just becomes another idea that never was, or it could be something where you took everything that you had, regardless of how the circumstances are, and you made it happen, right? And so between the watches and what I'm doing with Hedge, I think we both experienced what that looks like and what that means. And it's the greatest feeling when you finally get to see somebody wear that watch or use that payroll conversion product.
Exactly.
The first time it actually converted pay into crypto, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, holy crap, this is real, right? It took me a minute. I'm showing my wife, I'm like, check this out. And she's like, that's amazing. I'm like, I can't believe after all this time, this finally
that's awesome.
Is working. Yeah. So we want to bring this to as many people as we can. This is not an exclusive club. So it's not like, it's a Bitcoin only thing. I love Bitcoin. I really do. I'm a huge supporter of it. But I do not understand the maximal, the toxic maximalist ideas behind. I don't subscribe to that. I don't understand it.
I don't either.
People have options. You should be able to allow people to have options. Otherwise, there's no freedom of money if it's not a choice, right?
So if people today, because a lot of people this might be the first time they hear about Hedge. So you are now live, right? And if they want to actually, wherever they work, it doesn't matter whether you work for maybe any company out there. If you subscribe with Hedge, you can literally right now, determine how much you want to allocate of your paycheck into what are the cryptocurrencies you have for Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum.
Yeah, right now it's Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. We're going to add, a stable coin here and there. And then over time, I'm sure as things progress, you end up adding some stuff here and there, some other cryptos or whatever. But the idea behind Hedge as well is not a standalone product. It's something that's agnostic. So, and when I say agnostic, I mean that since you're able to send it to any wallet that you want to, right? We also have wallets and apps that are interested in integrating it into their own platforms so that it's a lot, it's accessible to all of their users if they want it. So, if let's say a certain type of a wallet that has 20 or 30 different cryptos in the wallet that they store anywhere or have that you're able to have custody of on your own, even when they have it inside of their product, maybe it has 20 different cryptos that can be converted into versus ours, which is just 3 right now. And, as we'll slowly grow from there, but maybe theirs has 20 and that's perfectly fine. So you have people that go, when are you going to have ADA on it or whatever else? Well, you know what, most likely some down the road, one of your wallets that you like is going to have hopefully Hedge or something like Hedge on it to where you're able to convert your pay into ADA or
whatever,
Digibyte or Algorand or whatever it is that you want, right? So
that's crazy, man. It's all like huge to me, and to me, this is like a huge development. Even as simple as you say it is, like it's literally a simple process to where it literally converts automatically. You don't have to do anything. To me, that's just a huge development. And again, it all goes back to how the infrastructure is being built to have a digital economy and to be able to immediately, and this is, it's actually kind of crazy how it all comes together because you build your business based on Bitcoin and Litecoin. I build my business with Coin Vigilante based on Bitcoin and Litecoin, right? And so to me, my main driver behind creating the watches was the current system that we live in doesn't respect your 9 to 5. Right. And what does that really mean? They don't respect that time because that time that you put into that 9 to 5 to come up with some money to feed your family is what? In dollars. So you get paid directly in dollars. And so each year you lose 10% of your purchasing power over and over and over again. And if you actually look at the chart of purchasing power for the US dollar, about 98% has already been lost since the existence of the US dollar. And so the watches, I made them to represent, well, on the other side of the story, you have Bitcoin, you have Litecoin, who actually respect that. You can see it in the charts. You can see it that over the course of time, they do protect your purchasing power, and no one can tamper with the scarcity. No one can tamper with the supply that it has. Bitcoin has 21 million ever, and then Litecoin has 84 million ever. And so the cool thing is that this connects too because people are able to circumvent the system to where they don't have to get paid immediately and directly in dollars. They can now get paid in Bitcoin, something that will hold its purchasing power over time. So that's just a huge development to me. I think a lot of people, if you're listening, you should probably sign up. Check out the website. It's Get Hedge, or what is it? Hedge.
Yeah, it's gethedge.io.
So you can do it there.
Hedge.io. Really simple.
Yeah. Sign up and do it, man. So let's one thing that I want to talk about, we'll keep talking about Hedge and all that, is Litecoin, right? So a lot of people, especially with the current dumps, there's a lot of sentiment that always goes up and down with price movement. So I follow you, and a lot of people follow you because they really like the content that you put out there. So in particular, the metrics, right? So you like to study the metrics and what happens with on-chain data and on-chain analysis with the Litecoin network. What would you say? Where does Litecoin stand fundamentally? Whether you're looking at on-chain analysis or developments with partnerships or, a company incorporating Litecoin, what's your 2 cents? Is there anything you can, give people to, at least the people that are losing hope or whatever? I feel like you could have some good content to put out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, like right now it's sort of in this stagnant period of the metrics sort of look almost the same every day in some respect. Like when you go to transactions, they're kind of hovering around 125,000 a day or so. And it gets kind of boring in that respect. But if you think about it, just a year or two ago, you're talking around 20,000 transactions, right? So go ahead and be boring at 125,000, right? And then in a couple of years, go ahead and be boring at 250,000 or 300,000. To me, it's the same way you look at a price. You have to go and zoom out and see where it was to see where it is. And that's usually the argument I use against anyone that talks about Litecoin being dead. If Litecoin is dead now at, and an average low of 125,000 transactions a day, how dead was it when it was at 15,000?
Yeah.
People were speculating the heck out of it and buying it at $400 a coin. Yet when it's 125,000 transactions and that's a slow day, people are complaining about how it's not being used or it's dead or there's no marketing, when everything from PayPal to Venmo to AMC to Flexa to all these different ways that, that's just the payment side. BitPay, I got added into Bread Wallet. I added into all these legacy wallets and payment systems that for the longest time had their doors shut to them, right?
Yep.
That's where some of that volume's coming from now that you're seeing over time. In the last 18 months, we've worked really hard to try and clear those barricades out of the way, because those barricades, as much as you might get new, like say outside of the ecosystem, people to utilize it or to add it, it's like people within the crypto ecosystem are focused on like all these legacy things. It's, well, it's not on this and it's not on that. And it's like, you know what? If you were to take the crypto, like how big the crypto space could potentially be, our space, our own internal ecosystem is literally like the pinky toenail of everything that could possibly be. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want to focus on. You need to be focusing on the rest of the body, because the entire rest of that body is what makes or breaks this entire thing, not your freaking pinky toe, nail or whatever. So yeah. It's great to get on the Bread wallets and the BitPays and all those things, but you got to think bigger. You got to think, femur, you got to think arm, you got to think head, torso, yeah. All that stuff, not pinky toenail. So that's sort of where we're at right now, is we're looking at the whole body, not just a little piece of the anatomy.
Yeah. And it's, to me, it just boggles my mind when people say Litecoin is dead, when we keep seeing developments. If Litecoin is truly dead, why is PayPal incorporating Litecoin? If you look at every big company or every institution that accepts cryptocurrencies, what do they always accept first? Bitcoin and Litecoin and maybe Ethereum, right? So every time. So Litecoin's not going to be gone next year, in 2 years, 5 years, not even in 10 years. In fact, it's going to keep being more adopted. And, we actually see it. The use case for Litecoin exists, and it's there. Out of all the cryptocurrencies that are in BitPay, Litecoin is the second most used, right behind Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's only after 4 or 5 months, from when it first came on at 0% to now I'll guarantee you by now it's probably over 15%. And over that time, Bitcoin's has gone down and the rest of them have gone down, and Litecoin's swallowing up that share of the BitPay
usage,
payments. Yeah. And so, I'm sure it's the same with any of the other ones. If you talk to Johnny Litecoin, he'll tell you that all of the vendors that utilize the services that he's provided them with crypto, Litecoin's the one that's behind Bitcoin. It's not anybody else, right? And Bitcoin, it's because it's been around forever. Everybody knows it. And that's the one that's pushed to the public the most. So of course that's going to be at the top, and it should be. That's the respect it's given. Yep. But you can't discount who's, coming in second or third or fourth, because there is a second or third or fourth. You can't just say there isn't anything else, because there is. And anytime Litecoin's involved in a conversation, it grows exponentially. So where does that come from? People that don't care. Somebody's using it. Somebody's doing something with it, right? So can't argue with that.
Yeah, you can't. And one thing that I wanted to add, because you talked about we're focusing so much on the pinky toe or whatever. We need to focus on the bigger picture. Yeah. So when we look at that, the Litecoin Foundation plays a role in that, right? And so, you being a director there, and being in the Litecoin Foundation, could you talk a little bit about those developments? Because I tend to see the Litecoin Foundation as looking at the bigger picture. The Litecoin Foundation is not here to just pump the price. That's not what the goal
Right.
is. The goal is adoption. The goal, I mean, at least in
Mhm.
my eyes. And so when you look at that, because one way is payments, and then there's just so many other developments that Litecoin Foundation has been working on. Another one is being MWeb. Another one is being OmniLite.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I feel like people need to hear, okay, what's going on for Litecoin? The roadmap doesn't stop here.
No, and we get proposals for things, and some of them are extravagant, and they just don't either fit the narrative that we're looking for, or there's just some price tag to it that's just maybe you go to some coin that's raised a lot of money on its own through ICOs or whatever else, doesn't matter. Maybe they have the money for some of this stuff, but we don't, right? This is like the foundation's kind of like this. That's why I like working for it. It's kind of like this ragtag. You ever see the Bad News Bears, the movie?
Yep.
I mean, you probably could never make that movie now because there's some
right. You can
some cancer culture stuff in there probably. But the premise of the movie is just it's all these misfits that are banded together onto a team with a coach that everybody just kind of looks like outside of those kids and think, what the heck, right? And then they band together and they pretty much do whatever it is they need to get to where they're supposed to go. And that's kind of how I see the foundation, right? It doesn't have this big, huge pool of money to dab into for a resource on something, but it does have some, right? But it's enough to sort of like continue operations and keep things going and provide some, enough of something to be able to still do something. And it's not looking to suck all the money out of the community in order to be this huge behemoth of a foundation and run everything. It just wants to be a part of the space, but a part of the space that people can at least look at for, some things that are going on within the community. And so like MWeb would be one, right? MWeb was Mimblewimble extension blocks was derived through Charlie and the idea that, in order to have sound money, you need to be able to call one Litecoin equals one Litecoin equals one Litecoin, right? Mm-hmm. So none of them should be able to be differentiated by, whatever activity was on them in the past. It's just like a dollar bill.
Right. Yeah.
So in order to do that, you need to be able to also have the privacy of, if I want to send you $20 because we went out to dinner and you paid for the whole thing, and then I was like, look, I want to at least give you 20 because that was a pretty big bill, right? When I reach into my wallet to give you that 20, nobody should be able to see how much money I have in my wallet, and they shouldn't necessarily need to know that I gave you $20, and they don't need to know how much money is in your wallet even after you receive my 20.
Yeah.
That's literally MWeb. That's something everybody should be able to have inherently. And so that's an initiative that we at the foundation feel is important. And so you bring in people, like David Burkett, who, comes from the Grin community, which, by the way, the foundation to me seems to work with more coins or tokens or other, than many other projects that I've seen that aren't called Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing I think people sort of look past too. But you bring in somebody like David Burkett, they work on it for 2 years, they want to do it right. And so just like anybody who's ever developed anything on the tech side, you basically never make your deadlines. It's a given, right?
Well, and then I'd like to add to that. Another part of that, and the reason why, in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, it's taken so long for this to happen for MWeb, it's because Litecoin, I don't know what the valuation right now is what, $15 billion, $14 billion right now.
Yeah,
that's the market cap. So that is a lot of people's value that they store in that network. So when you're doing one of the largest upgrades to a network like Litecoin with MWeb, you don't want to mess up something to where it puts the people's values at risk. And so that's part of the reason that, we need the audience and people listening to understand that it takes a lot of time because of that. You have to go to audits. You have to go through many different inspections and things in order to do it right. And I'd like to point out a lot of the tokens out there and projects, they like to do upgrades and do all these things, and they expedite them. But then what do you see in a month or 2 months or 3 months? The network shuts down. Something happened. Transactions cannot go through. Blah, blah. And that is because, and a lot of it goes back to what you said, a lot of these tokens have ICOs where they raised a lot of money. And what they do is they focus on using that money for marketing purposes.
Flash and sizzle. Yeah.
Exactly, right? But over the course of time, it doesn't work out that way. And what do we see with the Litecoin Foundation doing? They use the money, at least that I've seen, to actually work on upgrades, on things that are actually going to help the network, not just focus on that flashy marketing that a lot of tokens
the foundation
do. So
is not exciting. I'll admit the foundation can be extremely boring. And, maybe sometimes we even miss the mark on stuff. But, I mean, you got to remember, this is, like I said, this is like the bad news bears of crypto. It's a ragtag group of people that come and volunteered their time and their energy and many times their own resources to make certain things happen. Everybody from the person who runs the shop, the Litecoin shop where you can buy things, to the people like myself and many others, they're just like yourself. It's all your own time, your own resources. You're bringing value to the ecosystem, however that may be. But because of, there's a lot of part-timeness to it. And, maybe you don't have like the highest grade marketing company spearheading it for you or any of that stuff. You just have some people who have been in marketing and have experience with it, and they're going to be working with some limited resources, but they know how to use those resources. That's really what you're getting with the foundation. But at the end of the day, the foundation is not Litecoin. And to expect the foundation to be the end all be all of everything that's Litecoin is horrible. That is a horrible idea. And you should never hang your hat on that, because literally anybody could create a foundation today or anything equivalent to that and say, they're the Litecoin association or whatever, and advocate for the same types of things or different things or whatever they want. And that's perfectly fine, because otherwise it wouldn't be a decentralized community, right?
Correct.
So if all you do is say, oh, the Litecoin failed on this and the Litecoin Foundation doesn't do this, and okay, maybe they didn't, but why don't you do it then?
Yeah.
Nobody's stopping anybody. It's literally, that's decentralized. So I'll acknowledge when we have shortcomings or whatever, but at the same time, if you're somebody who was able to identify a shortcoming, I mean, at least when I was in the military or any place else, I was always told, don't come to me with a problem if you don't have a solution, because all you're doing is creating noise, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to identify a problem, come with a solution. But at the same time, I'll take it even one step further. Come with a solution that you feel maybe you can even be the one that solves it, instead of just saying, here's a problem, here's a solution, now you fix it, right? That's, those days are gone. That's not how this works. And anybody who wants to put on their big boy or big girl pants has to realize that in a decentralized community, you are the difference, not just somebody else that you see on Twitter or whatever else. You literally can be the difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and the cool thing about talking about all this is, especially with the projects that, I was just talking about, they may shine for a year or two, and they may actually pull at 10x or 20x, but are they going to be shining for 10 years, which Litecoin has? Litecoin has been existing for 10 years. Tell me any other coin besides Bitcoin who has lasted more than 10 years. You can't.
And at that level too. So I would agree with that. You're going to have some that end up doing that over time. You just need time. But they'll get there. But in reality, at this point right now, you have Bitcoin and you have Litecoin that are the longest running, successful, growing, blockchains. So, you have Vertcoin and you have others that still exist, but literally they only exist because there's somebody out there, maybe two people mining it or whatever, right? Or it's just, it's there, right? But it's no longer vibrant. It's no longer growing. It's no longer, doing it's not moving forward anymore. But
Yeah.
I mean, Litecoin is.
So what would you say, moving, and this could be more opinion based, whatever, one of the things I like to talk about in my podcast is get people's opinions on how they see. So we're looking at Bitcoin, we're looking at Litecoin. Those are two babies that we focus on. What do you think of them? Where do they fit in this world where we see too much government power take control over many things, one of them being our monetary policy? They do whatever they can with it. They just raised, the funny thing is recently they raised the debt ceiling by $2.5 trillion in order for them to pay debt with that debt that they just raised and all that stuff. So it just kind of boggles my mind. A lot of people don't realize that the current system, and I don't know if it's because they don't want to, or they're living in a very comfortable life and they just refuse to do it because they don't see a problem with it until it kind of hits them, like in Venezuela or other countries.
Yeah.
Like, where does Bitcoin and Litecoin fit in this place? And what do you think? I mean, why do you think that so many people just either refuse to look at the problem or don't care about it? Or, I mean, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think there's different levels to it. You have people that are blissfully ignorant, right? You have people that are aware, but they just really don't have the energy or the time or the amount of, I guess, inner drive to care too much about it. And then you have people who do. And those are probably the three, that you're working with. And so anybody that's blissfully ignorant is somebody who, I mean, you never really know why someone may not know information, even if they're like 50 or 60 or 70 years old. I've met people that still think the dollar is backed by gold.
Oh, I know many.
And I don't think anything less about a person like that, because maybe they just weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I don't watch any news anymore. Literally, I do not watch news, right? So you could tell me stuff I have no idea about. Does that make me a dumb person? Does that make me an uneducated person? No. It just means that I haven't had access to the same information that you may have had access to. So if somebody like that is, well, the dollar's backed by gold, and then, I mean, the worst thing I could do is mock them or make them feel like they're, stupid or right. I mean, what's the point in that, really? So what you want to do then is educate. So the best way to educate is to find the places where people are at and try and educate them. Yep. Even if you don't like the platform, right? Because I could care less about Twitter. But at this point, it's really about education and trying to be just a presence in general on it. And, there's other platforms like that you could do the same thing. I just choose Twitter because it seems to be the biggest place for crypto. But, I mean, in reality, it's probably better to go out to places where someone's going to mock me for even saying things about crypto, right? So when I go on LinkedIn, I'll put some stuff on there. I don't really get any negative feedback at all when I do stuff on LinkedIn about crypto, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know what people are saying when they look at it. I've had plenty of co-workers or whatever else, either in the military or when I worked for the state or whatever, who probably look at it and go, there goes David with that crazy crypto crap again, right? But there's others that reach out to me on the side. I've had guys that I haven't seen physically in like 10 or 12 years from the military who I did a small class for them after on LinkedIn. They were getting a hold of me saying, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about crypto, right? Mm-hmm. You have to start from ground zero with those guys, which these are smart dudes. I mean, they're IT security guys at the highest levels of the DoD, and they're just learning about it, right? Yeah. And then there's other people who may have worked with me in the state where I just got a message from a lady yesterday who I have a lot of respect for, ran an entire division out of one of the services provided by the state of Wisconsin. And she left her job to start a company that focuses on crypto because of some of the stuff she saw me posting. So that I didn't know that, right? But you don't know who you're reaching or what kind of a message you're sending to people. And so you always have to make sure that you're being respectful to everybody and you're putting things out there that are not driving people away, right? And
I think that part of the reason, and again, it's just my personal opinion, that people get scared. People get scared of Bitcoin and Litecoin and being your own bank, because in reality, I feel like just a lot of people have been trained, just either through culture or whatever, from whatever means, that either the government or someone on top of you needs to be in control. And that's just, to me, Bitcoin and Litecoin, offer the opportunity to actually have your own personal control over your funds, over things like that. And so people don't, when they first hear that, they're like, holy crap, but wait a minute, what's Bitcoin backed by? What's Litecoin backed by? You mean I'm my own bank, and the bank doesn't protect my coins? And little do they know that the money you even deposit in a bank to begin with is no longer yours the moment you put it in there. What the bank does is they use it to lend money with the money that you worked for in that 9 to 5, very hard for, and then they give you like a 0.001% interest on that money. And so I don't know. I feel like it's a mix of culture. It's a mix of how the government has made us believe, that we need them to make decisions. We need them to control money, when just people need to realize that there is and I like to, sometimes I like to bash on the government and big government control, which that's just me. But people do need to realize that there is an alternative. We're not telling them you can't use a dollar, but there's an alternative.
So I think one of the ways I could see Bitcoin and Litecoin either running side by side with the current financial system or lapping it, or I don't know, whatever, is the fact that many times when I talk to people about how is Bitcoin backed or Litecoin backed, you talk to them about energy. There's energy that's utilized to provide the work that proves all of the transactions. And, I mean, you try and keep it at a simple level, but, the simplest level would be there's energy that's consumed, and there's, resources that are created and used to make that happen. And that's an investment. And it's more of an investment that's made into $1 or $20 or $100. That's literally just the paper that it's made on, and, borrowed. It's not even, the Federal Reserve isn't even a government entity, right?
No,
so you're borrowing from a private entity for your country to have its own monetary system. It's literally not even our own monetary system. You're passing around IOUs, right? And the fact that I've heard other people say this too, but I love the example of, you can place a $1 bill, $20 bill, $100 bill all next to each other, and what do they have in common? They're literally worth the same thing, whatever the piece of paper is that it's printed on, and that's about it. Because in reality, none of them are backed by anything, right? And so that was one of the easiest things that I took away from somebody early on as an argument to somebody else, is to physically show them, okay, you say that there's no value in crypto, right? But tell me where the value is in these 3 bills that I'm laying in front of you, other than the fact that somebody put with ink $100 on it, when in reality it's not worth $100. It's worth $100 of me promising as a government that it's worth that, and that's it, because I borrowed it from a private entity who created it for us, based on the idea that at some point we're going to pay some of it back. We're never going to pay all of it back. Come on.
Yep.
Right? We're never going to pay all of that back. It's a day of reckoning that just gets kicked down further down the road. And at some point there needs to be a currency that can be utilized by everybody, that is not influenced by anybody.
Yeah. Globally,
right?
too.
Yeah, globally. And so that's when you start seeing maybe some more equality in the financial systems. I think just like there's derivatives and other things that have really kind of spoiled the true market sense of what Bitcoin and Litecoin and other cryptos used to enjoy. I'm sure there are tools that could be put in place in some capacity to sort of, manipulate at least the disbursement or availability of crypto to others. Nothing's ever really black and white or binary. It's people are just genuinely inherently evil. There's evil in everybody in some level, and some people are just really good at taking that evil and manifesting it into ways that they can manipulate others, and others are oblivious to that, or at least don't have the resources to do the same thing. And so when somebody says Bitcoin fixes this, to what level does it really fix it in the long run, right? It's a great slogan, but it may fix some things, and it may fix some things part way, but it's never going to fix everything.
No,
we're just broken in general. So
yeah, but what's interesting, and this is something that was kind of like a light bulb moment to me, and I have many of those, even to this day, about Bitcoin and Litecoin and cryptocurrencies, is that every country, the people of every country have a different purchasing power because of the fiat currency that country has. So the peso, it's 20 for $1, 20 pesos for $1, right? And so if you got a buttload of cash and you want to go on a nice vacation or whatever, and you're in the US and you take it down to Mexico, you can buy yourself a lot of nice things because your dollars have way more purchasing power than those pesos right there. So it buys you a lot. Now, the crazy thing is that by Bitcoin and Litecoin being a global currency that no one can literally control, not one country can control the supply of it. It creates a level playing field for everyone, to where everyone has that same purchasing power, regardless of where you work, regardless of where you live, regardless of your political beliefs, religious belief, nothing. It doesn't matter. And so to me, it's crazy. And again, it goes back to Hedge. It would be cool. I don't know if this is possible yet, if you guys go international and you're able to do that in other countries, to where people can get paid directly into Bitcoin and Litecoin. And like you talk about, manifesting bad things, you can also manifest this new ecosystem of opportunity, financial opportunity for the little guy in every country. To me, that kind of blows my mind. I mean, it's like there's so much opportunity, not just for you as Hedge, but for people everywhere by being able to do that.
Yeah, we're going international. It's just we started with the US because that's where we are, and it made sense. And usually, like, if you can conquer the United States and all the regulatory mumbo jumbo that goes on there, you're pretty much going to be able to do it anywhere, right?
Domino effect, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we anticipate being in other geographic areas already in the first quarter of next year, which is not, it's just around the corner. I would think by the end of next year, we should already be in at least, hopefully, 4 different geographic areas. So,
cool.
Yeah, you'll be able to take your yen or your peso or whatever it is, the euro, and have that pay converted directly over into crypto.
Cool,
it's going to be that simple.
That'll be huge. So, all right, let's kind of wrap this thing up a little bit here. So, last couple of comments. What do you say to people who are hardcore believers, or even any Litecoiners out there, for the people who are kind of getting impatient for whatever? What do you got to say to them? I mean, whether it's hopium or whether it's, hey, look, these are the fundamentals for Litecoin. This is what's going to happen, or whatever. What are your 2 cents for those people that are like just so impatient, like, man, I want to see Litecoin go to the moon. Like, what's going on?
Well, I never predict anything, and I really try to avoid anything having to do with an actual price.
What about fundamentals, though?
So fundamentals, I'll focus on those, and really, I mean, it's not any different than a company, right? So if you go back and you look at company fundamentals, in the stock market, you're looking at, okay, well, what was your overall, how much profit did you make this quarter, versus, expenses and whatever else, right? That's one dimension of a company, but unfortunately, that's the one that everybody concentrates on.
Yeah.
Because you have a crap ton of companies that have zero fundamentals, right? But for whatever reason, their stock prices are just insane. And so for me, it's funny you ask that, because that's literally how I used to invest in stocks. I would find stocks that had just great fundamentals. They were constantly, coming up in the black. They weren't in the red or anything. But they had whatever their mechanism is for their business, it's in a business that's not a flash in the pan.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business where they've shown steady growth year over year, for a sustained amount of time, and it's not really going anywhere. And, things like that. And there was some kind of a value for it being in society. And that's how I would measure, to me, what was worth something. And those are the values that Bitcoin and Litecoin have completely, right? And so you see continual growth year over year for the most part with Bitcoin and Litecoin, in all categories, right? And so is all the value really in a stupid market cap or trading value? Because that's literally a trading value. That is not the value of the blockchain. The value of the blockchain goes way beyond any dollars and cents. And so for me, that's worth investing in literally by itself. And if I'm doing it for that reason, I'm not doing it for a quick turnaround. I'm doing it for, my kids and my kids' kids and their kids. And that's how I look at things. Everything should be generational. It should not be instantaneous. If you're looking for instantaneous, you probably need to go somewhere else. If you're looking for generational impact, then, we got it for you right here. So that would be my 2 cents.
Wow. That's pretty good. I feel like a lot of people are going to like to hear that. So, all right, man. Well, thank you for coming to the show. Let's finish with this. All right. I'm going to say a sentence or two or whatever, and you got to respond with the first word that comes up in your mind. Okay. So it's kind of like rapid fire questions kind of thing. Right. Let's see. Peter Schiff.
I don't know. Taco Bell came into my head. I have no idea why. Maybe I'm hungry. Geez, Peter Schiff. Well, now I call him Peter Shift, right? Because he's always shifting where his focus on Bitcoin is, and it's never really good. But so I'll say shift is the first word that comes into my head.
All right, that's good. Litecoin network.
Slow and boring. Not slow in how it transacts, but slow in how it
develops and
like methodical.
Yeah. Okay, what about Bitcoin?
Definitely slow. Slower.
All right.
I would say for Bitcoin, the first word that comes to mind is empowerment.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. What about, okay, all right, this one, Hedge, your company.
Nascent came to mind, but I think that's biased. So
that's cool, man. All right, well, hey guys, I hope you liked this episode. We got David Schwartz here. Dude, I'm gonna have to bring you on maybe at a later point when more developments come on with Hedge or even Litecoin. I would love to do that, but dude, I enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks for having me on, man.
No problem.